In today's digital economy, cybersecurity isn't just important, it's fundamental.
Absolutely.
And nowhere is that more obvious than in these booming tech hubs like Hyderabad. It's really emerged as a major IT center in India, hasn't it?
It really has. Phenomenal growth.
But that growth, it brings pressure, right? Especially for local tech companies. They need to meet these pretty demanding global information security standards.
hmm
And that's why today our deep dive is focused on one key standard, ISO 27001.
Precisely. ISO 27001.
Hmm.
Well, it's basically the international gold standard, right?
Right.
It lays out what you need for a solid information security management system, or ISMS. Think of it like a framework, a really robust one, designed to help organizations manage and protect their information systematically.
Okay.
So our goal here with this deep dive is to give you, our listener, a clear, kind of actionable roadmap, especially if you're at one of these Hyderabad IT firms. It's meant to be a shortcut, really, to getting up to speed on this critical topic.
Right. So our mission is pretty straightforward then. We're going to unpack ISO 27001, what it actually is, why it's so critical for companies like yours, especially in Hyderabad, and the practical steps to get there. We're basically pulling out the most important nuggets for you. So let's dig into that a bit more. We've established ISO 27001 as the international benchmark for an ISMS. But why is it so important specifically for IT companies in Hyderabad right now? What's the big deal for them?
Well, what's genuinely transformative here is how directly this standard helps Hyderabad-based IT companies, particularly those looking globally.
Okay.
First off, it builds trust massively, but it also unlocks new clients. International partners often require this certification. It's a non-starter without it sometimes.
Ah, okay. A prerequisite.
Exactly. Second, it's about protection,
Hmm.
real protection against data breaches, cyber threats, which, let's face it, are constantly getting more sophisticated.
True, well,
It also helps with compliance, not just Indian laws like CERT-In guidelines. That's our computer emergency response team.
right, the national agency.
Yeah. But also international regs like GDPR.
Yeah.
Crucial if you have European clients.
Definitely.
And, beyond just ticking boxes, it gives you a real competitive edge. Think global tenders, partnerships.
Yeah.
Companies want secure partners. Certified firms just jump to the front of the line. And it's worth mentioning the 2022 update, too.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. What changed?
Well, it put a much stronger focus on things like threat intelligence, cloud security, which is super relevant for Hyderabad's tech scene,
Mm-hmm.
right? Lots of cloud-first companies there.
Makes sense.
It's not just a minor tweak. It's really aligned the standard with how modern IT actually works. Makes it more practical, more effective.
That's really interesting, that 2022 update context. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this sounds smart, but where do I even start? Well, this is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. We've boiled it down to a clear, actionable 7-step roadmap for implementing ISO 27001, tailored for IT firms, really outlining the journey you take. So to kick things off, the very first step, the foundation, is planning. For listeners starting out, what's the absolute first thing they need to nail down in this planning phase?
It really is all about setting that foundation correctly. First step, appoint a project's lead, usually someone like a CSO, maybe a compliance officer, someone to really own this.
Right, a champion for the projects.
Exactly. And it's not just naming someone. You need their full commitment, and crucially, you need executive buy-in from the very top.
Ah, the management buy-in, always key.
It's critical. A common mistake is top brass seeing this as just another compliance hurdle, instead of a strategic advantage. They need to understand it reduces risk, boosts competitiveness. It's not just overhead. Without that understanding, it's tough going.
Makes sense. What about practicalities like cost and time?
Good question. For a small to mid-sized company, you're probably looking at costs somewhere between, say, 1.5 to 5 lakhs. Depends heavily on the scope, of course.
Okay.
And timeline. Typically around 3 to 6 months. Again, depending on complexity.
And here's a pro tip for you listening. There are actually some excellent local ISO consultants right there in Hyderabad. They really specialize in streamlining this.
Yeah, that can be a huge help.
You could look into firms like Vive, Max Pro, or CERT-Value, but definitely do your homework, find the right fit for your specific needs.
Good advice.
So, okay, you've got a plan, you've got the team, management's on board. The next big question is, what exactly are we securing here? Which leads us straight into step 2, defining the scope of your ISMS. So this is about drawing the lines, right? Which department system locations are in.
Absolutely vital, this step. It sets the boundaries for your certification.
Right.
You need to think about specific departments, maybe DevOps, HR, customer support, physical locations too. Is it just a Gachibowli HQ? What about remote work, hybrid setups?
Ah, good point. Remote work is huge now.
Huge.
Yeah.
And of course, the types of information, the IT systems involved,
Mm.
all of it needs consideration. We actually saw a good example, a sauce company in Tech City. They made a strategic call.
Oh, yeah. What did they do?
They limited their initial ISMS scope to just their core development and production systems.
Okay. Why?
It let them fast-track their certification. Focused on the crown jewels first, their IP, their client data systems, made the whole process more manageable, especially for a fast-growing company.
That's smart. Focus the resources. Okay, scope defined. What's next? Step 3?
Step 3 is about understanding your current reality. It's the risk assessment and the gap analysis.
Okay, break that down. Risk assessment.
It's where you identify potential threats,
Yeah.
hackers, malware, even accidental stuff.
Yeah.
Then you look at your vulnerabilities where you might be weak,
Right.
and then you assess the potential impact if something bad happens, specifically thinking about confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. The CIA triad.
CIA got it. And the gap analysis part.
That's comparing where you are now, your current security measures, against what ISO 27001 actually requires.
Finding the gaps.
Exactly. Finding the gaps. What are you already doing well? Where do you need to improve? The main things you'll get out of this phase are a risk register, a risk treatment plan.
Which is how you'll fix the risks.
Precisely. And a gap analysis report detailing everything. And again, those local consultants, they can really speed this up. They've seen it all before, have templates, can save you hitting common roadblocks.
Makes sense to leverage that local expertise. Okay, so you know your risks, you know your gaps, now you fix them, right? Step 4.
Step 4, implement ISO 27001 controls and policies. This is where you put the actual safeguards in place.
And the 2022 version, you mentioned it has specific controls.
Yeah, the 2022 version groups them into 93 controls across 4 areas.
Yeah.
Organizational, people, physical, and technological. It's a pretty comprehensive structure.
3 controls.
Wow,
Any key ones for IT firms?
definitely. For IT companies, things like strong access control are crucial role-based permissions. Making sure only the right people access the right things. Encryption is huge. Securing client data, internal data, both when it's stored and when it's moving.
Right.
Asset management, keeping track of all your IT gear, software, knowing its security status. And vendor management, making sure your third-party suppliers are secure too. That's often overlooked.
Ah, the supply chain risk. Good point.
Big time. And alongside implementing controls, you need documentation.
Paperwork.
Yeah, the necessary paperwork.
Yeah.
An information security policy is key, sets the overall tone. A statement of applicability, or SOA.
So wait.
Statement of applicability. It lists which of those 93 controls you're using and, importantly, why or why not if you exclude any.
Okay.
And your risk treatment plan, which we mentioned. There are resources out there to help with this, by the way. Companies like InfoSec Train, top certifier, they offer templates, support, can make the documentation less daunting.
Good to know. Okay, controls going in, policies written. What about the people? We can't forget them.
Absolutely not. That brings us right to step 5, employee training and internal audits. You can have the best tech, the best policies, but if your people aren't aware, you've got a big hole.
The human element.
That's often the weakest link, honestly. I remember one client, their biggest breach wasn't some super hacker. It was an employee clicking a very convincing phishing email. Just one click.
Ouch.
Yeah. So training has to cover the basics of ISO 27001, yes, but also practical stuff. Data protection best practices, how to spot phishing, social engineering. It's about building a security-aware culture, not just a one-off training.
Culture, right, and the internal audit part.
That's like a dress rehearsal before the main event. You conduct your own audit, a mock audit, use checklists, validate the controls are working, interview staff, gather evidence.
Then problems before the real auditors do.
Exactly. Tools like Confluence can be great for managing all the documentation for this, and something like Jira helps track any issues you find and make sure they get fixed. Keeps things organized.
Okay, so you've done the prep, the internal checks. Now for the real deal, the certification audit.
Yep, step 6. Undergo the certification audit. This is where the external auditors come in.
And it's a 2-stage thing, you said.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Stage 1 is the document review. They check your ISMS, paperwork policies, procedures, the SOA, make sure it all lines up with the standard on paper.
Okay, stage 1, paperwork check.
Right. Then stage 2 is the implementation audit. This is more hands-on. They look at how well your controls are actually working in practice. They'll talk to staff, look at systems, check records.
See if you're really doing what you say you're doing.
Precisely. You'll need to choose an accredited certification by me for this. Names like TUV, SUD, BSI India, SGS India. They're well-respected options.
And how long does this audit part take?
Typically, the whole process, stages 1 and 2, might take around 2 to 4 weeks. Depends your size and complexity, naturally.
Okay, so assuming you pass, champagne, job done.
Ha. Well, maybe a little celebration, but no, it's definitely not job done. That brings us to the crucial final step, step 7. Maintain certification through continuous improvement.
Ah, right. It's not a one and done thing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
ISO 27001 is a living system. It's a continuous commitment. The real value comes after you get the certificate.
How so?
Through sticking to the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, PDCA. It's about constantly refining your ISMS.
Plan, do, check, act. Okay.
So post-certification, you'll have annual surveillance audits. The auditors come back to check you're still compliant.
Keep you on your toes.
Exactly. You need periodic policy reviews, things change, threats evolve, and ongoing employee training. Keep that awareness high.
So it really embeds itself in the company culture.
That's the goal. And you should be tracking key performance indicators, KPIs.
Like what?
Things like how quickly you respond to incidents, how fast you're patching vulnerabilities, how quickly you fix issues found in audits. These KPIs aren't just numbers for a report, they're vital feedback. They show you where you need to improve.
Continuous improvement. Got it. So bringing this all together, what does this whole roadmap really mean for you if you're running an IT company in Hyderabad? We've got some specific, tailored tips, right?
We do. Some actionable advice based on what we see working well there.
Lay it on us.
Okay, first, think about starting small. Don't try to boil the ocean. Focus on your most critical business units first. Get some wins, build momentum, then expand the scope.
Sensible. Makes it less overwhelming.
Exactly. Second, partner locally. We mentioned consultants earlier. Hyderabad has great local talent, often more cost-effective, plus they understand the local business context.
Good point. Third.
Secure remote work properly. Develop clear policies for BYOD. Bring your own device and hybrid work. It's so common in Hyderabad's tech scene, you have to get it right.
Critical.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Fourth, align with CERT-In. Map your ISO controls to the national cybersecurity guidelines. It ensures you're covering local requirements too. Double compliance, essentially.
Smart. And finally.
Finally, check for incentives. The Telangana government sometimes has IT policy schemes. See if you're eligible. It might help offset some implementation costs. Worth looking into.
Excellent tips. So at the end of the day, getting that ISO 27001 certification, it sends a really powerful message, doesn't it?
It really does. It tells clients, partners, everyone that your company takes information security deadly seriously.
It's more than just a certificate on the wall.
Much more. It's a statement of commitment, proof you're proactive about protecting data. For IT firms in Hyderabad, honestly, it's a smart strategic investment. It brings operational efficiencies, makes compliance easier, and gives you a real edge in a very competitive global market.
A strategic advantage.
Definitely. So as you, our listener, consider what securing your digital future really means.
Yeah.
Maybe think about this. ISO 27001 gives you the roadmap, yes. But how can that principle, we talked about continuous improvement, how can that empower your company, not just to meet the standard today, but to actually innovate, stay ahead of threats tomorrow, and really turn compliance into a dynamic strategic weapon?
That's a great thought to leave people with, turning compliance into an advantage. And if you are ready to explore this further, maybe start your own ISO 27001 journey, or even just understand what an assessment involves for your company. You can actually schedule a consultation with a certified expert. Just send an email to support@vertigo.com to get started. They can help you map out those first steps.